we get started, I need to go ahead and kind of preface this video here. So obviously we're going to be talking a little bit about anticipatory obedience, but we'll be talking about that more towards the end of the video. And I'm going to be using the medium of 2020 and comparing it to today of why it is that I don't think that this will succeed. And of course, we're probably going to be bringing up the 2020 election too. So I'm already expecting and anticipating the yellow dollar sign, but I've also chosen to go ahead and release the video, and you'll hear me say it in the next segment, on the Fresh and Fit getting banned, demonetized, all that stuff. You're probably, I'm going to be releasing that video to go along with this murder today as well. But the thing is this right here, we need to go through this, but I'm also going to be talking a lot about the restrictions that have came down. So make sure you guys stick around for the full video, because obviously they're trying to recreate something that we already went through before, but I don't think it's going to fly. And obviously social alienation is going to come up in this video as well.
They said, you got to warn people. Tuesday, we got called in, the managers, and told that by the middle of September, that the new policy is being written, that this is done. They were told this is happening. This is not hypothetical. You will all have to wear masks again, and so will airport employees.
So many of us would like to leave it in the past, but cases are once again on the rise. So when will new booster shots roll out? Ann Thompson asked the CDC director.
This summer, most Americans left COVID in the past, gathering together once again mask-free. But tonight, signs of a COVID resurgence. Across the country, COVID hospitalizations jumped more than 14% in the most recent week. But
this, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be good old-fashioned anticipatory obedience. That is what this entire thing is. As you guys are seeing right now, the C9-1 restrictions are coming back. And they are coming back to airports first sometime in mid-September, but then we should expect them to be slowly eased back in sometime in October. Now, guys, I'm going to give you my realistic view on this and what to actually expect, because it's pretty obvious that the powers that be are expecting a certain group of people to just go ahead and go along with the program. Those people are the Karens, who, by the way, are very, very much a part of the infected, so we will get there. But I got to tell you, and I already know that I'm probably going to get the yellow dollar sign for this video, but then again, at this point in time, I really and truly don't care, because the video that I did on what's going on with the manosphere about Fresh and Fit and them getting banned or demonetized, that right there will be coming out to go along with this video here, so make sure you guys stick around for both. But I got to admit, Ian Crossland, he actually summed this up brilliantly.
That is the recipe to destroy your country, is to shut it down. Don't do that again. And don't make people put fucking dirty masks on.
Nice.
I'm sick of it, man. I'm fucking sick of it. I will not do it again.
And of course, to go on top of that, we had Alex Jones, who was the one who initially broke this. Let's go ahead and watch the full minute and 30 seconds.
Ladies and gentlemen, I got a call yesterday. An individual was in town, and they wanted to meet with me that I know well. And they are a high-level manager in the TSA. And I went and met with them and had a cup of coffee with them. And they said, you got to warn people. Tuesday, we got called in, the managers, and told that by the middle of September, that the new policy is being written, that this is done. They were told this is happening. This is not hypothetical. You will all have to wear masks again, and so will airport employees. Then by the middle of October, they are going to say that everyone flying has to wear a mask. And in the meetings, people began to ask them, well, I mean, why is this happening? They said, well, because of the new variant in Canada and because of the WHO, they may, declare this. But regardless, we've been told this is going to happen.
Jones would eventually go on with Steven Crowder and dive into this a little bit further, but don't worry, we will get to that soon. So what's going to happen? Well, honestly, to tell you the truth, I think with it being an election year, I don't think that the federal government wants to go full on with the C9-1. By the way, I'm saying C9-1 because of the way it comes up in the algorithm. The thing is this here. I don't think the federal government wants to go full on, and the reason why is because it is an election year. However, what they do want is they want enough of their own voter base, especially those who live in cities, the infected. I'm talking about the very, very far left authoritarian, which, by the way, I got to kind of break down a little bit more towards the end of the video what the real difference is between the infected and classical libs here soon, is that the thing is this. They're more than likely going to go along with it, and they're probably going to want you to go along with it too. Now, me personally, I don't plan on traveling outside the U.S. anytime soon. I don't plan on getting on a plane anytime soon, even though I don't plan on actually driving out of state anytime soon, even though I do have a trip planned in October. But it's not going to be outside the state. It's going to be very, very much within the state. It's just about a 3 or 4 hour drive, but we'll talk about that later on down the road. The thing is this right here. What they're going to want is they're going to want good old-fashioned compliance. That's what they're going to want in this entire thing, and apparently it's got to do with some strain in Canada that they're expecting to come here. But I want you to go ahead and know right now that when Joe Biden was in office, was the vice president, he was put in charge of a lot of our pandemic response. You guys remember Ebola, swine flu? Yeah, he was actually put in charge of that. And the death toll was actually pretty high, which, by the way, always made me wonder about C9.1 because when you actually looked at everything, the overall response then versus when Trump was in office in 2020, it seemed to me like it was overhyped. But then again, if we say that, we shall get removed from the platform if we go full on. Even though YouTube has easier restrictions on this, it just makes you kind of wonder. Then you got to ask the question, so how long has this been in the works? Well, I'm going to go ahead and let this segment run all the way through. I'm going to come back on the other end, but Alex Jones went on Crowder, and let's just go ahead and say it one more time. If you had a jar that said Alex Jones was right, of course, it would probably be filled with nickels and quarters and dimes. Let's go ahead and roll this.
Because now people are aware, but ever since you've done that, we now see these happening with studios and with higher education. Tell people what it is here, your inside source, or I guess your inside information. What is being planned as far as lockdowns and when?
Well, I like your audience. They just don't care. You know, $170 billion to Ukraine, $700 to people in Maui, Hawaii. So I get this call, and I'd actually gotten it on Tuesday evening, but I had so many messages I wasn't listening to it till Thursday in my office. And I know this person for 20 years, and they're high up in the transportation system in the TSA. It's actually the agency above them. And so I called them up, and they said, hey, I'm in town. Let's go meet. So I went and met them, and they said, listen, they called in the managers. This is going to happen middle of September. They're going to try to make all the TSA workers in airports wear them. Then by mid-October, Biden's going to try to bring back masks in the airports and on planes. And I said, well, that's insanely unpopular. What's their excuse? And they said, well, this new variant out of Canada that they say is so bad, and hospital numbers are up. So you're going to see a rollout sometime in September of all this, and that's what we've been told. So then I got on the phone, called a few other feds I know. One of them answered. They're with the Border Patrol. They said, yeah, we've been told COVID restrictions are coming back next month as well, that they'll be phased in. So then I went to a computer and typed in, lo and behold, hospitals in New York were already saying, put the mask back on starting next week. I saw reports of colleges already doing it. So
yeah,
I go on my show Friday. I talk about it at 11 a.m. Central. And then by 5 o'clock that night on the nightly news everywhere, all the stations rolled out. COVID's back. Restrictions may be needed again. The BBC, the London Guardian, the Globe and Mail, and all the...
The impression I got there was, of course, that this right here has actually been in works for a while. As I said at the very, very beginning of the video, it's anticipatory obedience. You see, the current people in charge are anticipating the same people who went along with what happened last time will, in fact, go ahead and enforce the rules. They are saying this, which is very, very weird because I was reading a book 2 days ago by a guy named Timothy Snyder. I got about halfway through it. Everything sounded very, very good. Then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, it became the Donald Trump blame game. And I was like, yeah, Timothy, the irony of this entire situation is that you're actually talking about your side of the aisle. It's called projection. You're doing it, but then you're projecting everything on the other side of the aisle. The guy had massive amounts of Trump derangement syndrome. It was absolutely ridiculous. Everything sounded good, and I even read through some of the TDS, and I was like, you're actually describing the literal left in this country, which is what we're going to talk about now. So, what do I mean by the infected? What do I mean by the crowd? What do I mean by those who are anticipated to be obedient? Well, let's talk about this. In 2016, I was sitting down waiting for the election, and I was giving my actual analyzation. By the way, I was going to do an analyzation of last night's GOP debate, but I figured there might not be a point in doing that because a lot of people are already responding and reacting, and I'll go ahead and tell you now that I personally thought that Vivek Ramaswamy won, and I think that DeSantis' numbers have been kind of overblown in this, but I also believe that Chris Christie, Ada Hutchinson, and Doug Burgum, they shouldn't even be on the stage. Larry Elder should be on the stage instead, but we may do a deep dive in that there, but I'll probably do that after the debates are over with because Fox has another debate on September the 27th. But still, though, at the same time, we need to get back on topic here. So the thing is this right here. I remember in 2016, and Trump was like the last person I wanted to vote for. I was very, very much on the train of Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz or John Kasich, and Trump still ended up getting the nomination anyways. It was actually a bunch of videos. It was actually some of the Stefan Molyneux videos that changed my mind about Donald Trump altogether. So I eventually went out there and voted for him. I also watched a lot of other videos that were explaining where the money was coming in, who was receiving the donor cash. So ultimately, I ended up going along with Trump. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because there was a certain group of people who claimed to be conservatives, who had voted Republican their entire life, who said, we're not voting for this guy. We're not going to vote for this guy at all. Okay, I understand that. Maybe the guy will win or lose or whatever. Maybe he'll change some minds. This is, by the way, the same mindset of the people who are the Covidians. So, I have to say very, very weird because of the algorithm. But the thing is this right here. These people were not classical libs, okay? They were conservatives as well, and some of them may have even had an extremely big-time authoritarian streak in them. The same thing with the radical left, which I find funny because these people were the most anti-communist people that I knew, but now all of a sudden they've turned into literal Marxists and Nazis. So next thing you know, if you voted for this guy, this right here being the guy with the T in his name, next thing you know, your next door neighbors and people who did not like them automatically found themselves not liking you. That is the truth about the Covidian Karens. That's the truth about the infected. They were people who probably didn't like you before, or maybe they were people who did like you and didn't like your decision. And ever since then, they've been holding on to something. These, by the way, are people who, quite frankly, aren't even really and truly liberal in nature. You take the guy who the guy from California who burnt the Trump sign up in Raleigh. By the way, YouTube has labeled a massive copyright claim on that video, and I have no idea why, because the video was up for 2 days, and the volume was cut off. Very, very weird how YouTube is doing this nowadays. And of course, they're probably going to yellow dollar sign this video here. But the thing you have to understand is this. A lot of these people were people who had secret jealousy. I mean, really, do you know any classical libs who would burn a Trump sign? Do you know any classical libs who would show up to your house and take a crap on your front porch? Do you know anybody who would do that? No, they wouldn't do that at all. These right here are people who had deep down disgust and deep down disdain for you in their hearts. This right here is who these people are. Maybe they had always had it. Maybe that is what it really and truly was. Maybe they always had an issue with you personally and they waited for the right time for it to come out. Or maybe it was the fact that this guy running even brought it out. And I've noticed that in 2020 that you had a lot more discontent and a lot more hatred were coming from people that, quite frankly, you did not expect for it to come from. People who, quite frankly, had nothing better to do with their time went out there and they rioted and all that stuff there. And, of course, at the same time, they also caused copious amounts of chaos. That's what the hell these people did. They took advantage of a situation. And, of course, we were sitting there holding the bag, looking at our country being completely burned down. But, of course, like in the case of Kenosha, somebody eventually did step up. So it makes me think that what they're trying to do is try to recreate this on some level. But they're hoping that they can control and they can actually contain the situation going into 2024. My personal opinion on this right here is that they're not going to be able to do this because the social alienation is just too much. I mean, think about it this way. You try to enforce BS rules. People have already been through the BS of 2020. They went through the BS in 2021. They went through this stuff already. You're not winning anybody over. Now, there are some people who are probably cheering the fact that these restrictions are coming back. Fact of the matter is, however, though, is that there are a lot more people who are walking away from this. And also, this is where it goes to the whole election thing. You see, in 2020, and I've had to tell people this all the time, I've told this right to the people who claim that it was stolen. I've talked to people who claim that it was not. And my opinion is this right here. We need to move forward as a nation regardless. I know it's an unpopular opinion amongst some. I mean, I would tell you what I really and truly think happened that night, which I'm going to go ahead and proceed to tell you anyways, even though I kind of set it up like I was not going to tell you. But what I think happened is that they needed a push. That push was the people on the ground who physically went there and voted for the current administration. The current administration was not going to win unless they had the bunk ballots and all that stuff there. Like I said, I know I'm going to get a yellow dollar sign on this video, but the thing is this here. Yeah, I'm looking at the stand. The thing is this right here. They still had to have a certain amount of people who were anti-lockdown who said, you know what, man, I don't care which way the wind blows right now. I just want this nightmare to end. So they put Biden in office anyways. How many votes was that of 81 million? I would argue that if you looked at the initial polling, which, by the way, this was right around the time that Naomi Wallace came out and said, whoa. Biden said there was going to be no more lockdowns. What the hell? It's about 4.5%. And then you have another 4.5% who were saying, I would never have voted for Joe Biden if the Hunter Biden laptop, if I had gotten that story. Then you had another like 6 or 7% that said we weren't allowed to change our votes. Those people are not going to be voting for Donald Trump. I assessed that about 10 or 11% total. I'd say of about 81 million votes, it's probably right around 8 million people, which would be devastating for Biden because Republicans don't need to win the popular vote to win the election. Even with shenanigans and even with fortifications, as Dick Sexenhammer would say, or as Razorfist would say. You're not going to have the boots on the ground vote to be able to pull this off. And then you factor COVID in there. There's obviously going to be some more people who are going to say no to this. And then now you've got someone like, say, Cornel West, who's going to take away a lot of the inner city black vote, which, by the way, is going to be very important in states like Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, definitely, and possibly even Richmond, Virginia, or Virginia and Georgia. The fact of the matter is this right here. If you actually look at the situation, it looks to me like whatever they're planning to do is probably going to fail. The social alienation, quite frankly, is too much, and you're going to try to enforce rules on people that they're not going to follow. And like I said before, you have the anti-lockdown crowds probably just going to stay out of the election altogether because, quite frankly, they only voted because it was their way of saying, I want the lockdowns to end. So, no, I don't think this attempt right here will succeed. And at the same time, though, but it is, for the most part, what I said at the very beginning of the video. It's anticipatory obedience. That right there is what it is. They're anticipating that people fall in line. And in reality, more than likely, people are not going to fall in line. With that right there being said, guys, make sure you guys hit that like button. Make sure you guys subscribe. Make sure you guys share the video. Sign off in the comment section. I would love to get you guys' thoughts. And I'll see you guys later.